get this out of the way. We're recording. So again, welcome everyone to the 2021-22 State of the School Report. I trust most of you know my name is Matthew DeBoer, principal at St. Teresa Catholic Academy and father of two of our students. It's been a year. And so for our opening prayer, there is a Catholic school parent, I believe, who wrote this, Miss Cameron Belm. I believe she is a St. Joseph community member, and it's one that Mrs. Mayer shared with the staff one day, early 2022, when things were just kind of flying in all sorts of directions. And so we have these words here to guide us, and I think just put things in perspective that as challenging as things have been, we are a family that prays together, and we're going to stay together and get through this in the end. So read along at home or just listen in. And this is again a prayer for a pandemic by Cameron Belm. And in honor of our language for February, we'll do the sign of the cross in Amharic. Besm Ab, Beweld, Bemonfes Kadus, Ahadu Amlak, Amen. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or paying their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those who have no place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. During this time, when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God. Amen. Besma'al, Buel,
So this is
Ahadu Amlak. Amen. All right. Well, welcome again to the State of the School. Our theme for this school year, selected last spring, is We Are the Light of the World. And coming in from a year where most of our families and students and really staff were not on campus much, we really knew that there was an infusion of hope that was needed, and just the positivity that comes with us being together and being a community. And so we selected that theme, with great hope in mind. And I also gave the staff a book to read over the summer with the ambition of reading this book and coming together to talk about it. And the title of that text was, We Want to Do More Than Survive, Abolitionist Teaching and the Pursuit of Educational Freedom. The title of that text is quite interesting as we reach the midway point of our school year, because it seemed some days that we were really struggling to survive. Yet one of the core premises of Dr. Love's book there is that schools should be about more than transferring academic knowledge, civics information to our kids. We should really be creating, what Bell Hooks called home places. And Dr. Love described some of her experiences in school where she had that, and some experiences that really were the opposite, and a place where school became a place of trauma and where she never wanted to go again. And so we read that with the hope of kind of saying, how are we at St. Teresa doing, being that home away from home for our children and families. But I share that title today to say it's just interesting how it sits midway through the year. So for Christmas, the staff got another book for me called Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? And so despite the challenges of this time, globally, nationally, locally, in our own households and in our own school community, I think the question is a solid one from Dr. King. And when we choose community as our way forward, we again can be filled with hope and light about what is on our horizon. And so some more words of wisdom from some influential figures, and again, tying in our theme. Dr. King again reminds us that no matter how hard things get, we can't let despair overtake our hope. We just need to continue to walk arm in arm with faith that the future is going to be bright. And when we can't see it, Amanda Gorman reminds us there's always light if if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. So as we catch up on this school year, let's remember that we are called to be light to one another and to our world. And with that, here's our agenda for the evening. We'll talk about our community, being a diverse community. We'll take a look at who we are today, provide some general updates, and again, try to offer some hope. I'll take the first half of that. Mr. Nelson will tackle the second. And then we'll talk a little bit more about our academic program where we make excellence happen on purpose. And Mrs. Day will guide us through some exciting things happening, talk about what we've done this year, look at some data, and push us forward a little bit. And then we'll move on to our financial update to kind of take a look backward, to put our current reality in perspective and talk about where we sit today and where we go moving forward, as well as signing up for next school year. So we'll kind of transition to what's left on this year, our big event being the auction in May, and that it takes all of us. And so we'll kind of close this out with just a quick walkthrough of our registration process, which will be very similar to what we've grown used to in the last couple of years. Depending on time and technical readiness, we are hoping to offer some breakout rooms at the end for parents who want to get together with their peer parents from the cohorts. To do that, we've got to make sure that your names are correct. So if you are on the call and can rename yourself so we know who you are, either with your own name and or your child's name, that will allow us to assign you to a breakout room if you want to stay for that part. But again, that's optional at the end, and hopefully sitting on a 1 hour plus Zoom call does not take all of your energy away, but we're grateful that over 100 people are spending their Thursday evening with us tonight. So I got my water. I probably should have some more coffee, but I'm trying to be good, and we'll keep going. A reminder about who we are on the back of our hoodies and t-shirts, and I'm kind of, if you can see me, we got these new staff fleeces with one of our root beliefs on them for Christmas as well. But these root beliefs really do guide who we are, what we do, and how we do it. And I say that as a staff, I say that about our students, and I say that about all of us who have chosen to be members of this community. And so as a reminder, we are a diverse community. We are called to act with justice. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We believe excellence happens on purpose, and we lead by example. And so we hope that tonight's presentation will reassure all of us that these root beliefs are alive and well in our community. This is my 8th year here at St. Teresa, and it's when I first did this State of the School presentation, we put it in Catholic Schools Week. I believe it happened later in the community calendar in the past, maybe early spring, but we knew that we needed to kind of get this process started much earlier in the year. And so Catholic Schools Week seemed to be the right time to kick it off. And so I'm giving kind of a one slide presentation here, but I did put together a probably 20-25 slide presentation to really get into what Catholic schools are supposed to be according to Catholic doctrine and how that is played out in our own context. And so I do this with new staff every year, and just wanted to pull out these 7 essential characteristics, because I think if we were digging into them, we could see that we truly do live these characteristics of the Catholic school. And so we're called to be a community. We're called to not just be a school, but a safe and spirit-filled environment. When someone walks in, they should feel different than walking into a public school. We couldn't do that environment without having faith-filled teachers who share of their time and talent to bring the best out of our children and partner with our parents, which is the next theme. And parents, just another shout out this week. You all know we've been understaffed, and you have truly been rising to the occasion. Not only have you been sitting in Miss Nicole's chair this week, but we lost Miss Emma and Miss Dana to a retreat to close out the week. And so recess, parents, you're getting a taste of all of it. So we really are grateful for all of the volunteering that's happening right now, not to mention the hospitality for Catholic Schools Week. So we partner with parents, and together we create purposeful academics. It's not just here's the standards and let's master them, but rather there's a higher purpose to all the learning that happens on our campus. It's all that pursuit of truth and that pursuit of filling us up so that we can go out into the world and be those kingdom builders that our God calls us to be. So that leads us to provide service to others. That's in how we run our program and also what we invite our children to do. And so as we see the Omicron numbers spiking downward at the same rate they were spiking upward several weeks ago, we do hope that we can try to get our kids out in the community to make a difference. But a little plug right now, we are collecting canned goods for St. Mary's Food Bank for Catholic Schools Week. So if you haven't brought any in, feel free to bring those in tomorrow so we can give a nice contribution this weekend to our neighbors in need. And then finally, prayer is one of the biggest things that I've been talking about with the third grade this week about what makes Catholic schools different than public schools, because we can stop and pray at any time. And you all know we begin and end every single school day in prayer together. And so it really is a gift. So just wanted to pause and say thank you all for choosing a Catholic education for your children. And thank you for working with the staff, with your children, and with our wider community to bring these characteristics of Catholic schools to life day in and day out. So we'll jump to a community update. Who are we today? So taking a look at our current reality on the ground, we have 197 students from 137 families currently in our school. We peaked over 200 a little bit over the holidays. A couple of folks, relocated or geographic reasons have started at other schools. This school year, we've had 47 new students, which is almost 24% of our student body from 29 families. Interestingly, last school year, our new student percentage was actually closer to 27%. So the numbers are slightly higher, but from a percentage standpoint, a little bit lower than the previous year. But these last 2 years of growth have put us at just about capacity enrollment, which would be 200. We're coming from 44 zip codes around our region, and I don't know of another elementary school that can say anything close to that. So thank you again, families, for not only choosing St. Teresa, but choosing long commutes and dedication to get your kids here every day. As a Catholic school, y'all know that we teach our Catholic faith and we celebrate it and live it, but 57% of our students are not Catholic. And so again, it just speaks to our mission and our community, that we're not just a school for Catholic children and families. We are truly having a wide reach. And so we thank you all for bringing your own rituals and traditions into our community to make us stronger and richer. And as of now, 89% of our children are children of color. The way we like to put people in boxes in this country, Hispanic is not reflected in that, as it's a ethnicity, not a race, according to our census numbers. And so just have a couple of graphs there to highlight our breakdown today. And you can see our grade breakdown is pretty evenly spread. You'd have to add P3 and P4 together to see that our biggest cohort is that early childhood 2 cohorts. But really, we don't have a class that's drastically smaller than the rest. All of our classes are 17 plus at this point. And putting that in context for those of you that are newer, when I started at St. Teresa, I believe there was 1 class that had that many students, and several classes were joined together. So we really have seen amazing growth, and that speaks to you all, the parents, the children, the families, because you are our best marketers and recruiters. So that's our students, and I'm just gonna transition a bit to our staff. If you've read the last couple of 3 big things or 19 big things updates that we've sent out, you know that we've had a lot of transition this year. So just wanted to kind of put that out there in real terms. When we came into this school year, we were really excited. We had a kind of a 6-person admin team with Miss Nicole, Mrs. Day, Mr. Nelson, myself, our counselor, and Mrs. Codrington in the business office. And we're really excited to kind of expand that reach with a 3rd on-the-ground administrator running the show. 14 classroom instructors and 12 support staff was our staffing model. We didn't fill all of those support staff roles to start the year. But we were really excited to be a growing team, over 30 staff members, and ready to meet the growing needs and the growing numbers. What's happened since? Well, unfortunately, we've had 7 resignations from our team, and that is, almost a quarter of the staff who started the year not being on at the midway point. In addition to that, we've had 3 medical leaves, And that does not include the 3 blessings of new babies for Miss Anna in preschool, Miss Thomas in kindergarten, and my own family that resulted in leave. So putting those numbers in context, about half of our staff members to start the year have been out, either have chosen to leave us or extended medical leaves. And so that's a huge disruption to our kids, but it also speaks to the dedication of the Dream Teamers on the ground. And as we transition from January, which bar none was the most difficult month of the year for us, February is offering some light and some hope. All of the administrators have been in classrooms full time this month. However, we welcome Miss Severin Jones as our 1st grade teacher this week, and she's on the ground running. Mrs. Molden joined us kind of rolling in the fall and planned to start full time really in January. And so she's in 2nd grade. So welcome, Miss Mary Molden. And we even signed up Mr. Day, who those of you who were been with us through the pandemic, you remember his voice from afternoon assembly the last few years. But he's actually been helping us out in the cafeteria and in extended care. So we have people who are stepping up. And also it's been a week of great hope because we've actually had applicants for our counseling position that's been vacant since November. We've interviewed several people interested in being TAs and supporting our teachers and our students. And so we feel really good about moving forward and really in February, having that staffing model that we aimed for to start the year. So I guess I want to say, parents, thank you for your patience and support. Whenever I communicated another transition, I was never met with judgment or critique. It was support and how can we help? And there's a lot of communities where that would not have been the response. It's been hard on our kids. As a parent of a 2nd grader, you know, our kiddos have had 4 teachers this year. That's hard, yet those kids are sticking together, those families are sticking together, and we can see light. So thank you to parents for sticking with us, and to the Dream Teamers. Our parents tell us, but hats off to all of you. All of the hats that we're all wearing on a daily basis. It's real. The struggle is real, but so is the joy that comes with collaborating and working toward a common mission. So it is a partnership between parents and teachers. And I think this year we're seeing that in ways that I haven't seen before. So thank you all. And I hope to give some more updates on the hope that February is offering at the start. Wanted to take a moment to talk about COVID because it's kind of been a thing for the last 3 years. And we haven't really captured it by the numbers. And so I want to just put these out here because I think our community's done a phenomenal job with minimizing cases on campus and doing our part to contribute to the wider community avoidance of making this bigger than it needed to be, and solution orientation. And so we closed campus, as you know, in March of 2020, but we came back that summer. In our first small operation, there were no cases that showed up on campus. And then in January 2021, we brought back a few more cohorts each week a year ago. So this time last year, it was really only kindergarten, preschool, and then 2nd and 3rd just showed up back to campus in January of 21. But we went all of that second half of last school year with only 2 cases ever coming to campus, and both were isolated and didn't have a spread to any other students, staff members, or households. Last summer, we had our summer program. I think over 50 children attended in all, not every week, but over the 8 weeks that Miss Agnes and her team ran the show. And we were COVID-free until the very last week. There was a couple different situations that hit all at once. And so we decided to shut it down for those last couple of days, as it had hit 3 households and 2 of the staff members working. So it made sense to just press pause, let's get healthy to start the school year. In the fall, we had a pretty solid start to the school year. You know, a lot of us excited to be back, a little bit uncertain about what was coming our way. But ultimately, we were pretty good until November hit. And in a span of 2 weeks, we had 5 different cohorts that were hit with cases. But only one of them had more than 1 child in a class impacted with a positive test. And so what it tells us is that the mitigation measures that have been put in place our families doing their part of picking their kids up and keeping their kids home and avoiding, too much extra outside of school, we've really been successful. Our numbers are far lower than any other school leader that I've talked to. And so I want to thank the community for doing that. It says January 2021, which is our first typo of the night. If you were my students, I would say if you find it before I do, you get extra credit. But I guess if it's in the chat, I'll look for you and give you $100 off of tuition. But timestamp that at 6:56. But this last month, Omicron has taken our celebratory data and kind of said, I win, you lose, as it's hit 9 of our 10 classrooms, multiple students in a lot of those classes, and 6 staff members, including myself, have been hit by this. But the good news is we kind of saw it coming. We've been able to prepare for it to the best of our abilities. And, we're optimistic that while this has been a really tough month, we're on the downward trajectory and have hope, not just in increasing our staff, but also in reducing absences for staff and students as a result of this. So what else have we done to combat this? Well, our staff has done their part. Everybody got vaccinated. We have our boosters, and really going back to March when teachers became eligible a year ago, it was our parents that were literally signing our teachers up at these clinics while they were teaching their kids in the classroom. And so we've done that. We hosted 2 vaccine clinics coordinated by Safeway, thanks to Miss Nicole and Happy Santos, one of our 4th and 8th grade parents, getting that done collaboratively. And over 150 children got vaccines right here on our campus. We're a small school, so we opened it up to our neighbors. We had some Madrona and Epiphany students here as well as parishioner families. So it really is a community effort. And we now have our testing program, which it was really hard to get a test a month ago. And now we have inventory for rapids and PCR tests right on campus. So we hope we don't need them all that much, but it is really convenient that we know we can do it right here and get pretty good response times with our partners there. And we couldn't have done all this without the guidance from, of course, the local public health officials, the archdiocese, and the state. But really, 2 parents who've taught me a lot, and I've leaned on are Dr. Chris Barron's 7th grade dad, and Happy Santos, who again, 4th and 8th grader, who, are very informed. We are not healthcare workers here at St. Teresa. We're educators, but we're blessed to have parents who have readily helped us troubleshoot things and guide our processes. So just want to thank you again for doing our part. And as we sing, we shall overcome throughout this month, I believe it holds true sooner rather than later in this current historical moment. This slide, it really is just kind of looking back as to how far we've come over the past 8 years. And I think it's worth celebrating. And so our enrollment from 2014-15 to now has gone up by 73%. And again, you all families have chosen St. Teresa, and you're here probably because another St. Teresa family invited you in. So that's the work of our community. Our staff has grown. Obviously, the counselor role has an asterisk next to it, but we do have 2 really qualified applicants who I talked to yesterday, and a 3rd who we plan to meet with. So we hope to fill that again. We've really built up our academic support work, led by Miss Summers right now, and Mrs. Day. And our teacher leaders, our administrative team has evolved. So really, a lot of cool stuff to meet the growth of our students. We have our alumni who are making us proud, even through this pandemic, with all that's been dealt to our children. 4 straight years of 100% acceptance into Catholic high schools. All of the enrollment growth has turned into a fiscal turnaround, where other Catholic schools are kind of sent to us to say, what was your process? How did you make this happen? And unfortunately, they don't have our community to do it. So, I say it is really about the community, but it's numbers. People like to see that too. We reinvented our program. We started a summer program. And again, we continue to have blessings come to us to make a difference in our program, in our facility, and in our community. So all told, our theme for this year was "We are the light of the world." And while at times it's felt a little dark, Dr. King reminds us that it's only in the darkness that we can see the stars. And so if these are your students, they might be mad at me because we haven't voted on like the winner of the Light of the World art contest that was in September, but I am highlighting them in the state of the school. So shout out to these artists from, I think they're from 3rd, 6th, and 5th grade here. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson and mute myself, and he's going to take us through these next couple slides. You there, Mr. Nelson?
I am. Thank you much. Malcolm Nelson, Director of Student Activities and SACE, Student Activities and Community Engagement. I titled it Back Again for the First Time. We've been trying to do getting our community back together, and a big part of students' development does involve sports, and so it was nice to get soccer back. 2 nice little slides there. MDB, if you can hit next for me. So we had the return of soccer. Unfortunately, Omicron picked up and we couldn't continue with basketball in the wintertime. Volleyball is going to start soon. This is my plug. Registration closes tomorrow, so please do 4th grade through 8th grade. We've got some coaches lined up, just waiting to figure out how many players we'll have so we can register for the teams. This kindergarten photo here was one of our first days back during the summertime. We had to shift our back to school barbecue, not the full scale, everyone there, but we did it in shifts this time around, which was still a fun time, but didn't allow us to have that whole school community in the same spot. But this was still nice to see the kindergartners on their shadow day. We had a whole campus jogathon earlier, tweaked the track a little bit for each location. So we're still trying to find ways to do everything that we can as a community, while being cognizant of trying to keep our distance and mitigate our COVID cases. We had another awesome Christmas around the world. We did buddy classes this time around, and believe it or not, our community knows how to eat. So still the food was, there was a plethora of food. Some classes were like, oh man, that class was eating so good. I came out and it was a beautiful thing to see, again, of how our community does always rise to the occasion. And we brought back some enrichment activities. This top right picture here is Taekwondo going on. Coach Khalil there in the center. We had Taekwondo, jump rope, quilting by Miss Branch. Coyote Central sent us a community partner for cartoon drawing. And we've got some bigger ones. Those asterisks are the ones that are coming soon. We're going to have a filming one, a cooking one, a beading enrichment. So we're still trying to expand our enrichment opportunities to get people back in the building, get our students back working together and enjoying each other's company. Go ahead and hit that next one for me. And so some of these things we did highlight already. You know, it's been a wild year, but it does take a village. And so, you know, this is my personal extended thank you to all of you who have been in and out of the building supporting us. The kids love it. The kids need it. And so, you know, to start the school year, we had to sort of get away from the community desks with everybody all over each other. So we built 200 of those individual desks. Our JVCs have been huge. Miss Emma and Miss Dana, they're out on a retreat, finally getting a break. You know, it's been wacky, but everybody has stepped up. We built those nice red and black picnic tables out there. The kids have enjoyed those. It's been a nice little space for us to get outside and still enjoy a meal. You all have set a record with the number of volunteers that have been inside the building, let alone in January and February. But throughout this whole school year, it's been really nice to rely on all of you. We now got the rapid tests and the antigen tests, the PCR tests in the building. Miss Nicole, she has enough hours to probably get a nursing degree, the amount of things that she's been working at the front desk. So we're trying to do the things that are going to continue to build our community outside of the house. You know, we highlighted earlier that we had 150 plus vaccines. That was awesome to see our community work together. We were on the phones just calling neighborhood schools saying, hey, let's make this work. Our trunk or treat was another awesome experience that the whole community got to get involved in. We even built a tiny house again in September, and we whipped that one up and got that out. And our college students, the volunteer corps that we have running throughout these last couple of months has really supported us. We've had a lot of recess staff helping us out, and we have some after school staff, and that's going to continue again throughout the year. But that's been pretty nice. Pretty nice assistance in the building. Hit that next one for me. Some alumni shout outs, just some quick ones. Our own Ari is back with us, class of 2015. Originally she said Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And now she's in between time on Tuesday, Thursday, working her class schedule, back outside helping us. She does everything, preschool, recess, in the classroom, aftercare. She's been a rock. Our own Tyler Kidd, class 2010, he came back and served as our PE teacher as we had a leave of absence going on there. He's now pursuing his professional basketball career overseas. He's down in Australia. So if you want to help out with PE, shout out to Mr. Reese, who's been with us this week. We need somebody for PE. Our own Maggie Gallagher, daughter of Mary Brennan. She was the only female athlete on the UW's men baseball team. She's top notch. She's pursuing her professional career with PACCAR now. And most recently, Shane Noel, class 2017. He's now at University of Arizona. He's a member of their basketball team. And his older brother is a member of, Jalen is a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So just some small highlights. We have a lot of alumni out there doing big things. But it has been really nice to see them come back in the building. Our back to school barbecue earlier when we started the year, or rather our new family barbecue, new family orientation, the amount of people that raised their hand that said alumni class of was a blessing. So it's been really exciting to have alumni back in the building, getting some work in. Charlotte Peterson, she graduated 2 years ago. She was a coach for soccer. So our community's reach continues to grow. And a lot of that is because of you guys and your word of mouth, and hopefully the experience that students are having here, that's going to continue to bring them back. Naturally, students always come when they need their high school hours. So that part, you know, it runs its course. But even when you come back later to get a job at your school, that says a little bit something more. If you could hit that next slide for me. And so, you know, with our goals, we've been continuing to try and root ourselves in faith. It's been a crazy year. You know, we thought Omicron was going to be a thing. It has been, but then there was its set of resignations, and then we had the beautiful thing of baby birth, and so we had some maternities, some paternities. We've had some health things. We've had some concussions, some just things that you would not even think are on the docket show up. And so faith is still the main reason why we choose Catholic schools, is so that we know that we can do all things. And it takes God. It really does. Our accreditation efforts went well. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. And our community goals still remain the same. We really do rely on you all as a parent organization to keep us afloat. I think it's been very evident over the last 6 to 8 weeks that without you all as parents, we wouldn't be able to do it. And so the revitalizing of our PTO is a huge thing, and that's that's underneath my hat. So I've been trying to work hard on that. As you know, everybody's been everywhere, so we do appreciate everything that you guys have been doing to rock with us. And our auction's coming up, and so I'll touch on that one a little bit later.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for those highlights. And we are now going to transition from community updates to looking in a little more formally at our academic program. And so sometimes referred to as our Chief Academic Officer. She always hates when I do this, but let's give our own Mrs. Teresa Day a warm St. Teresa welcome. We will take over this next portion.
Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Good evening, families. Thank you for joining us tonight. 113 people on the call. That makes me happy. So thank you again. You can see here I'm going to touch on 5 topics for us tonight. First off, I'm going to bookend my presentation about academic programming. So let's talk about where we are right now with our academic program. I think the first thing you can see on the next slide, if we move forward. Oh, yes. We're in-person instruction in all classrooms throughout the whole building. That was something we really wanted as our goal for this year after the last 2 years. And as Mr. Nelson said, we built desks to make it happen. And our teachers have gotten really creative on how to make that space a safe space, whether it's learning in groups or learning in pairs or eating snack in the classroom. We're using our space to the best of our ability so that all of our kids can continue to be learning in person on campus. I've talked about this before, but our teachers are using new science resources this year. Tomorrow will be the 4th online training our teachers have had in order to implement those new resources. And just last night, I was working with our new 1st grade teacher, and we were figuring it out for ourselves because neither of us made the first training. And the book is pretty amazing. It links literature to science phenomena, a lot of hands-on activities. 1st grade, hint, there's going to be glow sticks in class next week. So that should be super fun. Mr. Nelson talked, or maybe Mr. DeBoer talked about Mrs. Summers. She returned to our Student Support Services Coordinator role this year. And she is working closely with our school district and some title tutors to provide some intense intervention work with our students who need that kind of support. She is also regularly meeting with district school psychologists on our students with plans, the district, helping us help them with different classroom supports and social emotional supports and executive functioning supports. She's also weekly meeting with our teachers to talk about those children who are on our individual service plans or plans through the district. She is an amazing support for our teachers and students, and we are grateful to have her in our building. I'm going to talk about this next one a lot, but we are working toward, I wouldn't say upgrading, but just transitioning our grading and reporting systems. So you'll see some differences in the reports you receive during progress report or report card time. I wrote a 3 or 4 part article in our 3 big things throughout November and December to help our parent community understand the direction that we are going. And I'll talk more about that later on and ongoing. I cannot speak enough to how amazing our dream team are. We have 3 teachers who stay for extra meetings once a week to help me and our administration support our teachers as we build our academic program. And our focus right now is on writing. So we are planning writing workshops and rubric workshops with our staff so that we can continue to excel in those areas. And of course, we learned a lot about how our Chromebooks can be a tool for success. And we were already doing blended learning, and that is still something we will do. But we're also, we've held on to the great things we learned to use remotely so that we are using our technology smarter and more fluently as the years go on. So if there's any positives from remote learning, I would say that our teachers have learned some extra technology tricks when it comes to engaging students in the academic realm. All right. I feel like this is a repeated slide at this point, but Mr. Nelson and I work really closely on the community and culture. So it's really great that we can say that we are still intentionally working to have as many events live as possible, but realizing that having that mixture of virtual and live has really helped us reach more of you, so that even when you can't be present, you're still present with us. So these pictures here are adorable because every time we have mass, half our kids are in the church and half our kids are in the gym. And no matter where you are, either location, it is a holy space. And it brings us all together, even though we're still separated by that wall. And when it's not a mass day, students are in their classrooms. And that also, our teachers do an amazing job making that a holy space on liturgy days when you're part of the virtual experience. Mr. Nelson talked about Jogathon. That was a great experience. We had a beautiful Veterans Day experience. We had a lot more veterans show up this year than I remember last time. I still have your cards actually in my office because I forgot to bring them to the church with me. So I apologize for that. We've heard about Christmas around the world. We had a whole afternoon recording a Christmas concert. And thank you, Mr. DeBoer, for editing all that footage because I ran out of time. We even found a way to make our awards ceremony live. We did it again in the church and the gym. I had the younger kids in the gym, and they were just so happy for one another receiving their awards. So I was so happy we could do it as whole groups in those two spaces. Last year, our teachers decided that we wanted to be really intentional to build our community of buddy classes. So it's on our weekly calendars and monthly calendars to have those activities once or twice a month. And it really helps our kids make those bonds connection. While we were watching Holy Bowl today, my first graders were shouting out their buddies' names as they saw them on the screen. It's really adorable to see how that connection really grows over time. And of course, we're doing Catholic Schools Week this week, reinventing those activities with our Holy Bowl today and our exercise activities yesterday. And we're not stopping. We have our teachers planning all the next events. They're going to feel and look different, but it's this energy that we're bringing in our schools together. And we are family, and we believe it and we live it. And so we're going to keep doing what we love. This slide you've hopefully seen before. This has been our achievement and growth goals for a while. And I say that because they are pretty lofty goals. They're not unachievable. We wouldn't have put them there if we couldn't do it. But we have work to do still, and our teachers are taking it one step at a time. So you can see there, we really want our kids to be at or above grade level on our normed tests. But what we really focus on is the growth benchmarks. So last week when we were doing MAP testing, I was proctoring in first grade, and I was able to tell our students, you worked so hard over the fall, you grew 15 points since September, and they would just get so proud of themselves. So it's less about where my number is at, but which direction I'm going and how far I'm taking myself. And so our students really are leading by example in our growth achievement. And I do apologize, I don't get a graph on that one this time because I don't have that growth data from our most recent test yet. So I can share that in an upcoming 3 Big Things email in February. But I do have some graphs about our current data. So the next 4 graphs have some data. So I had this graph on last year, so I've added this fall. And you can see how our if you want to blame remote learning, if you want to talk about COVID, we're all tired of COVID. So you can see how our numbers really did dip a little bit from 2020 to 2021. But I want to celebrate that last year, even during remote learning, we put a heavy emphasis on the teaching of language and writing. And you can see that those numbers stayed at that high level, at that 65, 64. So while we dipped in math and we dipped in reading, because we were doing our intentional focus on language, I want to just really celebrate that our students have made progress in that realm and kept ourselves at that level. I project after looking at the winter scores that we will see our math and reading come back to where it was in a short time. And then my next few slides have those different, this is all the fall data because our winter data has not yet published. So our groups here are in blue and the national norm is in red, and those norms were re-established in 2020. And then the district mean is the test scores from the Archdiocese. We are part of a consortium within the Archdiocese of Seattle. And so all the schools who test create that district norm. And you can see how our school is tracking with those red and dashed lines. And our 1st through 4th graders are above that national norm in math, and our 4th grade class, and I've talked about them for 3 years in a row now. They've had the star and check their whole career with us. And so I'm really pleased with our 4th grade cohort year after year, continuing to grow and maintain their level of achievement. And then we can look at the reading and look at this celebration point. No matter what COVID threw at us, our whole school is at that national norm or above it. So it's really a pleasure to see these data. And again, you can see our 4th grade still shining as also above the district mean. But this data, it has stayed consistent. So even last year when I was updating the graph, our check marks were across the board last year as well. So even though we saw that dip on that first slide, we have this consistency in our program that is holding our kids to a high achievement level. And then our language also looks the same. I think I actually missed the 5th grade check mark. I will double check. But again, this is consistent data. Our kids are achieving at that high level that keeps us competitive with our neighbors here and around the country. My last couple of slides here are about our accreditation. I've talked about this for 3 years and it's not going away, but we can at least celebrate the end of that cycle. For a year and a half, 2 years and a half, we studied our school, we wrote about our school, we talked about our school. And then we had a very successful visit in 2021, October. The visiting team had nothing but glowing remarks to say. When they read through our goals and our reports, they agreed that we were choosing the right path for our school. And from our understanding, they suggested that our school be accredited, and we will get those reports from the commissioning group, the accrediting group, later in the summer. So our 3 goals, the way they were written in our report, are listed here. And we've already made progress on all 3 goals just in a short time. Not the progress I wanted, but it is progress nonetheless. Mrs. Summers is leading this first goal of expanding the reach of our student support team. She and our group have already tested with the DIBBLES program in our K-2 classrooms in the fall and in the winter to track student growth that way. Just an extra bit of data in addition to our map data. And the DIBBLES helps us catch students with some reading difficulties early on. And that was part of their goal, is to implement this DIBBLES program to identify early on our students who may need more support. And that way they don't hit 3rd or 4th grade and still have struggling in reading. And then in the second goal here is about our planning, teaching, and assessing. And this is those articles I was writing about standards-based grading, that's coming from this goal. So our teachers will continue to get training on writing rubrics and planning with standards in mind, which we're already doing, but we want to make it a consistent across the board and have continuity in the way we're reporting to our parents so that you can get the best picture of your students' growth and areas for improvement on all reports. And our third goal here about writing and language usage with a target of 75 or more students out or above, that came from our in-depth study on a single subject. And I've already mentioned that our lead teachers are helping guide that process. So far this year, we have given all of our students a common formative assessment on informational writing. And we're establishing rubrics to use to track student growth in that genre of writing over the second trimester. And we will do that every trimester at the beginning and end to track student growth with learning in the middle. And that's part of this process for helping us identify where we need to focus our learning and where we need to support kids and where we can push them beyond where they're at. So that's part of this work here, and it's an ongoing thing. We're also reviewing writing curriculums with a review team of staff members. So we're making some good progress, and if anyone wants to see the timeline for that growth, I'm happy to share it in a link in one of our future 3 big things email. And my last slide here bookends our academic program. So we know where we are. We have these goals and some things that are ahead in the future for us. So right now our school is giving report cards on trimesters. And what I find as the chief academic officer, as Mr. DeBoer likes to call me, is that, gosh, I feel like I'm constantly reading report cards, and 6 weeks just doesn't seem like a very long time in a classroom to have valid data to share with a parent. So we're going to transition next year from a trimester system to a semester system. So you would get your first semester report card about mid-January, and you would get a first semester progress report around November-ish. So you'll get, instead of 6 reports in a year, you'd get 4 reports in a year. And this allows our teachers some extra time to assess student learning, to provide quality feedback, and then to also give you the information you need in a timely manner on how they are progressing. I've already talked a little bit about the grading. Right now, preschool through 5th grade use standard-based grading only, but our middle schools still do a dual grade. So they get traditional grading of percentiles and then also standards-based grading. So we will be transitioning middle school into standards-based grading only. So if you haven't read my articles, I'll put them into a single PDF and share that as well. I just haven't gotten around to that part yet. Part of the student support team goal in our accreditation was to provide staff trainings in the universal design for learning. If you've heard buzzwords like differentiation and meeting students where they're at, this universal design for learning takes that to the next step. And so it helps our students with support plans or service plans be more included in the learning process in their classroom. So this is something that our student support team is preparing for our staff as a whole. And then as a school, we use restorative justice through our discipline as a whole school, but some of our teachers have expressed the desire to know more about that on the classroom level. So we will be doing a lot of teamwork to grow and understand how to bring more of that approach into the classroom level. And it really is based on building relationships. So those are some things that will be coming in our near future to enhance our academic program. And one thing I love about St. Teresa is we're not afraid to do the hard work and take these steps that might seem revolutionary. So we want to embrace the best practices and be that revolutionary school that meets the needs of our students and break those chains, if you will, of the colonial traditional schoolhouse where you had the one teacher and every kid did the same thing at the same time all day long. So God bless St. Teresa and our parents and students to want to do that work along with us. And that is where we're headed. And that's the end of my academic updates.
Thank you, Mrs. Day, for that. Give her another round of applause. Oops, sorry. I'm told I need to hit refresh to catch a few quick updates that went in before we go to the last part. So this is one of those times, if you were a remote student, where we probably should take a stretch break. So I'm not going to have us do a Go Noodle video or anything like that, but you know, I'm going to lead by example and just stand up and stretch my legs real quick, because there's nothing like talking about a bunch of money and metrics like that when your brain is already fried. So wiggle those bodies, have a sip of a nice healthy beverage, and let's take it to the closing few parts. Third grade parents, as you know, I'm with your children all day, and shout out to the Felixes who donated this really large $20 bill. It's generating a lot of conversations. But ask your students what the answer to 5 times 4 is, and let me know what they say, because it's not a number anymore. We changed the answer to that. But I'm going to go ahead and get to our finances. You could see what we'll be looking at here. For the sake of time, we kind of removed all the slides on tuition and fees for next year, because that information is in the intent to return survey. But you know, we'll get to the essentials and just kind of share our story, so you could see where we've been and where we are, and again, you heard a little bit about where we plan to go. So so you could see our enrollment has steadily grown from 112 on my first day of school, my first year as principal, to, you know, we got over 200 and sitting right there at 197, 198 today. And with that growth has come financial stability and security. And so just putting that in number perspective, you could see where we were at that first year. We grew throughout the year, but we had a lot of fiscal work that needed to be done to right the ship. And we made progress. We had support, but the biggest thing we needed to do as a community was grow. I find it funny that it says there was 1 student last year. That's not true. I'm gonna update that real quick, because I don't like typos. So thank you for your patience. But you can see that as we've grown, we went from a 6-figure deficit to a 6-figure surplus. Other things have happened besides student growth: improved tuition collection, improved fundraising. You know, we've obviously raised tuition, as I know you all know. I'm a parent here too. It's real, but it's that collective effort that shows that it's possible to right the ship. It's also possible to be inspired by our children, and so I just wanted to point out that while Brother Kiko's in 3rd grade in this photo, he was subbing for Brother Amir, as Amir, Lacan, and Isaac have called themselves the Miracles, and I think they might start a boy band. So watch out, because we might be making money off of their musical talents. Let's look at where we're at this year compared to last year. These are really hard years to really talk about predictability and consistency, because there's been so much that is extreme with COVID and government money So these are numbers, but there's stories behind them. So last year, this is looking at end of January as we're in February now. Revenue was good. You know, we were ahead with a little bit about a $40,000 surplus at this point in the year. This year, comparable. There's a little bit of a smaller surplus, but you can see that both expenses and revenue are slightly lower. One thing to point out, in the revenue, there was $90,000 last year in COVID relief grant funds that were one and done. The Fulcrum Foundation raised over $4 million to support Catholic schools through this, and we had an initial $60,000 grant and then an additional 30. So this does not include the federal PPP loans or kind of federal government money. This is just grants that came in through that. So really, when you put that in perspective, you know, we would have been looking at a deficit without those grants. It did shape some of our expenses, especially with technology. We wouldn't have spent money if we didn't have it, but it's showing that we, you know, take away those extreme examples, and our revenue this year would be higher than it was a year ago. And a big part of that is we've grown 7% increase on the K-8 tuition side, and our preschool was fairly small last year, as well as the kids club operation. So that's up 62%. It helped also by the summer program, which we'll talk more about as well. And again, our bank account, I have that bad habit where I check it every day, but I used to check it to kind of see if we had to call the Archdiocese for some emergency support by the end of the week, or if we would be okay. You know, at this point, it's more, are we at that 45 days of operating expenses in the bank, which is what our Archdiocesan fiscal guidance says we should. So we're in good, stable shape. But we say that excellence happens on purpose, not once you get good enough, you stop there. So I also want to point out, I haven't feel like updated the community on, this is how we're doing now, but like, what about, we got some historical baggage that we're also tackling. When I arrived at St. Teresa, there were 3 loans of 60,000 or more, all to the Archdiocese or the Fulcrum Foundation. And we really weren't able to do much those first couple of years, but we did turn a corner in 2018 and started to pay down those loans. And so through just, I would say, our fiscal planning to pay them down throughout the school years, as well as some large gifts, we've brought our debt down by $142,000 during these pandemic years. And so not only are we staying afloat, have we hit enrollment capacity, we are also taking care of some stuff from the past that will allow us to better move forward. So God is good, and we need to celebrate that. But obviously $221,000 is still a fairly sizable number, and we're paying it down monthly and not adding to it, which is crucial. So we'll keep trending that way. What are those signs of hope? This first one is a sign of hope, but I want it to be more hopeful. We sent out a survey in January. Typically it's sent out in December, but I trust most of you know I was on leave, or at least trying to be on leave for most of December. And so some of our just annual processes were delayed this year, along with the other staffing challenges. So we do have responses from 84 out of 121 families. Normally we are closer to like a 95% response rate on this survey. So there is some uncertainty here, but I'm going to be optimistic to say that of the 37 families we haven't heard from, you know, I trust most of y'all want to be back with us, but of the data we have, 89% of our families do plan on returning. There's a couple who've clarified that they have plans that are not St. Teresa next year, and 7 other families who are considering other options, which has any number of meanings based on their individual circumstances. Our summer preschool and programming was our first reopening in COVID era, summer 2020, and it was a great success. Last year, it more than doubled its operation in terms of attendance as well as fiscal numbers. And so we're excited to take on year 3 of that, led by Miss Agnes and her team, which has included employing alumni high school and college aged alumni. We had middle school students volunteering throughout last summer, supporting their community, learning how hard it is to be an educator. And so not only are we providing a safe and productive space for children to spend their summers, and for their families to send them, getting some of those life skills to our older students and young alumni, ideally, recruiting them to this greatest of professions. And we've also just had these blessings. Despite all of the uncertainty of the era, people continue to support our mission and invest in St. Therese. We got a new gift from the family of Paula Moore, who was a St. Therese alum who passed away in 1992. And they gave us $95,000, which is a plan over a couple decades here to distribute that funds to support families in times of need. And so, the short version of that is that money was with the Seattle Foundation, and the family felt that they really weren't honoring the desires of the Moore family and how to use those funds. And so they talked to the University of Washington, and they talked to St. Therese, and initially divided that money into our two pots. And within 2 months, they actually transferred the money away from UW and brought it over to here, because they believe that we are the best place to honor Paula's legacy. So a few of our families out there benefited from this in the holiday season, and it helped them out. And so we're really excited to have this partnership. And again, angels from heaven looking down on us. And so we're also excited to build our collaboration with our parish, and our new pastor, Father Woody, really is a visionary leader, and I think going to do a lot of great things for our parish and school communities. And then another thing that is complicated, but also exciting, is we are sitting on $230,000 of federal COVID relief funding that is ours to use or lose in the next 18 months. It's highly restricted. I wish we could use it to increase our salaries and hire more people, but it's very limited. Good news on that second point is they did just change some of the rules, and we can use some of these funds to hire people and compensate people to do COVID related work. So whether that's supporting what Ms. Nicole's been doing in our testing center, if you will, or expanding our lunchroom reach, instead of teachers being in their classrooms to cover lunches, as we spread the kids out, we can actually use some of this funding to do things like that, and hopefully also increasing tutoring for addressing learning loss, as the government likes to call it. So that's exciting. They're also going to help us build a fence around our playground, which is something that we'll be talking about here too. Some update on our restricted funds. I trust most of you know or have heard the story of the late great Mr. Wayne James Melanson, who is Mr. St. Therese. He gave his whole life to this community and continues to give to us from heaven and through his inspiration. And so this is our scholarship fund. It was at zero in January of 2017, and we now have over $131,000 in it. And that includes already putting in the operation 13 scholarships for this fiscal year. And so Mr. Melanson, St. Wayne, has a memorial right outside our gym and church doors, and continues to look down on us. And we wouldn't be here without him, and I personally wouldn't be here without his guidance in my first years. So shout out to Mr. Melanson, and a reminder that you can sign up to be a recurring donor to this fund, or invite grandparents, aunts, uncles, alumni to support that via PushPay through our website. I used to have the text number, but they kind of changed that service thanks to cell phone providers lobbying. But let's continue to find those to support that fund and sustain our children and families' futures. Also, our Teacher Excellence Fund. Again, this did not exist in December 2018. We started it at this State of the School just 3 years ago, and it's gone from zero to over $120,000. And the goal is to support our dream teamers. It's not a surprise to say that they're underpaid. Dare I say grossly underpaid for the work that we ask them to do. But they do it because they care. They do it because they bleed our mission, and their faith and commitment to acting with justice and doing God's work is alive and real. So we have this money we've raised, and a lot of days I want to just take it all out and give it to our teachers now, but we know that wouldn't be fiscally responsible, even if they deserve it. But I do want to highlight that we've been able to give commitment bonuses and signing bonuses to our teachers from these funds. We did increase our salary scale 2,500 last year, and it had been kind of $1,000 bump every year. And we've also been able to fund staff members in graduate school, including Mr. Nelson, who graduated. We helped pay for our PACE teachers. And we've had other teachers go back to school and do trainings from these funds. And so, you know, I made a pitch a couple years ago that like, hey, I'm the only recurring donor, and families have heard that response. And so I didn't actually have time today to see how many, but I want to say it's actually 8 or 9 recurring monthly donors to this fund. So whether that's $5, $5 million, every penny counts, and these teachers deserve it. Here's Mr. Nelson and some other current 7th graders. I see Massimo and Rowan and Titus in there from 2014. Oh, and there's KB too. How about it? The admissions update, full transparency. We have had a hard time keeping up with admissions work this year because there has been so much on the ground. And that falls under my umbrella. Mr. Nelson supports it and Mr. Cole helps organize it all. But we've given a few tours, and we have yielded a lot of calls and a lot of interest, but it really has been a challenge to kind of do this work with fidelity because of all that's gone on the ground. And we just told families who are interested, we need to press pause in January because we know it's going to be a tough month. And they're calling now that it's February. Our parent volunteers could tell us that. And so those are just some numbers. They're probably not current, but we do have a lot of interest in next school year, particularly in the preschool kindergarten. So we do plan to have some virtual info nights in February and get people back in the building for interviews. And new families can commit to signing up once the current families priority window ends on March 4th. So that's where we're at with admissions. A couple of highlights on our fundraising. Our Jogathon was a massive success this year. Not only was it a great community event, an absolutely beautiful day, we also increased our revenue by 29%. We set a $40,000 goal in 2020, and we hit about 48. This year we set a $50,000 goal, and boom, $62,000 from you all. And I love the Jogathon because we literally just have to email everybody we love, and they support our kids. And so like very little labor turning into over $62,000 in revenue. So thank you all for participating. We had over 900 individual donations made to the Jogathon. Our annual fund, we commit to that as parents in the registration process to make an annual gift. We did not make the calls this year to remind you of your pledges. Again, I hate to just go back to because of staffing shortages, but it's real. And so we do plan on making those calls to remind you of your pledges. If you haven't made those gifts yet, let's make sure that we honor those. Again, these numbers, I apologize, are not updated on the pledges and the date here. But we did, as current families, pledge over $80,000 to the annual fund this year. So let's get there. And our overall goal is 100. And then finally, the auction is coming up. I have some more slides that will be more important coming up here. But a big thing to point out is that we are actually doing something unique this year, inviting our parish to be full partners in our auction. And so we'll talk about that on these next slides. So our auction is our single biggest fundraiser. You know, last year with the virtual event and the pandemic and kind of, I think, virtual event fatigue, we did see a large dip, but we exceeded our goal. We still did really well. A lot of this was selling tickets, these previous 2 auctions. And so our goal this year is $100,000, with 60 of that being our fund to need to support tuition assistance and scholarships, and then 40,000 between sponsorships and item sales. The parish also has a $15,000 goal because we're going to be splitting the item sales 50-50 with the parish. So we will keep the fund in need, we will keep the sponsorships, and except if we exceed the goal, and then we'll split it. But it's becoming a joint fundraiser. And so we're excited to bring parish leadership on board and to really have a community celebration. These are some slides that you can look at the PDF later, but it just shows you the difference in where the revenue came from in 2019 when we had an actual event. 11% came from ticket sales. The fund in need 35%. The experience when people were there bidding was 45%. When we went to that virtual event, 15% of our revenue was actually still ticket sales, and people donated it to our scholarship fund as a conversion. And then our sponsorships went way up. Our fund in need increased. This was the Teacher Excellence Fund, but our sales actually went down, and that was largely because I think the zeal of outbidding someone at your table or at a rival table just wasn't there. And then we saw that trend continue last year. Our sponsorships went way up, more than doubled. We went from about 12,000 to 27,000 in sponsorships. The fund in need was a huge chunk, but the sales again were kind of trending downward as both a total revenue and a percentage when you put it in context. So, so that's kind of how we've done, and we anticipate something similar to this again this year, maybe with the fund in need climbing up because we will be supporting tuition assistance. So I share these numbers to show that really it is our family's commitment, our family's participation that leads to our success. Our current enrollment is 197 students. We're going to be graduating our biggest class in decades with 21. And so we got some replenishing to do there. I'm projecting 162 of our current students returning. And so that's assuming that 2/3 of the families we haven't heard back from on that survey will choose to return to St. Teresa. That number could be higher, it could be lower. We can only work with the data we have. So again, we will send that survey out again, but we're at the point now where it's time to register, not just say, what are you thinking? So if we get about that number, our new student goal will be 38 to get back to capacity with 200 students. You can see the more students we have, I'm sorry, this is last year's cost of education, not this year. But the more students we have, the lower that cost of education. And our job is to close the gap between this number, 97, 96 last school year, and the amount we're collecting per student, which is 57, 59. So again, I will revise this before I send out the PDF. I just did not transfer the data.
This actually happened in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was a student, and this is what he was. That's what she
A
said.
student talking on the call. You got a question? I don't think so. So I'm going to bring Mr. Nelson back on here. But before we talk steps to register, real quick, our big event, our biggest fundraiser of the year is our auction. And so we're committing to planning a virtual auction to just go all in on that. We hope to maybe have an on-campus way to experience it, depending on where the state of the world is. But mark your calendars, May 14th. And it's kicking off 95 years as a community, from 1927 to 2022. And so there's lots of ways that you can get involved. And so, Mr. Nelson, are you ready?
I'm back.
All right. So we got Mr. Nelson on, and he's going to make a little pitch to recruit your support.
Beautiful. Our theme this year, May 14th, that's a Saturday. We are family. We are a community. We are together a full dream team. The beauty of the dream team is that every player, every member of the team was from a different place. We are family. And I think that's one of the number one things that people say about St. Teresa is the family, the community feel. Me, I've been a part of this family my whole life. It's through and through. It's in my veins. It's in my blood. A lot of you have known me since I was knee high to a caterpillar, and we're still here together. 95 years. And, you know, we want to hit that 100 mark strong, but we got to secure and envision the future together. And together is the biggest emphasis on that. Will you hit that next slide for me, Matt? Where you don't see any initials is where I need your help. We've got to secure volunteers from our parents and our parish. I truly believe that a lot of people saw the power of community over the last 6 weeks of school, last 6 to 8 weeks of school, as it was, hey, where can I help? I'm glad, I'd love to help out. And that's what I do love about our community is you all really stepped up. It's a beautiful thing, the creation of life. And Matt has the job of being a good dad. So he is going to step away again to continue his paternity leave. And so I will be leaning on you all to really help me out with getting everything we need accomplished. So anything that you see up there that you feel, hey, I can do that, I have that skill set, I'm ready to step in, please, 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 please get a hold of me as soon as possible. Sponsorships, procurement, working on the audience, our communication, our social media, greater giving, fund to need, live event support. I don't know if you guys remember the beautiful auction a couple of years ago when Matt and I had 19 screens going, and then in the middle of it, there was a big frequency thing while we were trying to play videos. We are decent, and I pretend like I know how to work a computer most days. I can turn it on and off. And so we really would need all the support we can get. Our family engagement, as well as our parish engagement. We're really excited. We are one parish, the St. Therese family, school and church. We are one. And so this is probably the greatest thing that we've done is joining it together so that we can have that joint effort, because the two of us can't survive without each other. We are one together. So I'm going to be leaning on all of your support, because while we try and do it all, that is one of the worst things that you can try and do is do it all yourself. It does take a village. It does take the full community. And so we've been doing it well for 95 years, and we want to continue to do it for 95 more after that. Hit that next one for me. Looking at some of the things that we want to do. I mean, you guys have seen our school. You have been inside the school. Sometimes there's a bucket. We'll get to that. Some urgent projects. You know, we do want to update our playground. The last time it was updated, I was in second grade, 98. I was in the second grade, is when we got rid of the tires and brought some of those play structures up there. It's time for something new. We want to get renovations for licensure for our early childhood. And as you see, the big dreams later is an early childhood center. We got to get some landscaping upgrades. And we have a lot of land. That's an expensive lot. Like a lot of people would like to do a lot of things with our block, and we should do those big things with our block. Our big dreams: early childhood center and reading room, library, housing project with Catholic Housing Services. A lot of our teachers work multiple jobs just to afford where to live. And it is going to be extremely hard to continue to continue to hold excellent teachers if next door or down the street or the next city up, they can get twice the amount of money, right? So we're really trying to hold great teachers into our community because they believe in Catholic education. But man, when you got to eat, you got to eat, right? And so housing is huge in Seattle, as we know. It's a big issue. Flooring, windows, our boiler. If you've been inside our school, it is 95 years old. And so it's time to fix some things so that, a comfortable, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you can be comfortable, if you can get the surface level things met so that you feel safety and security and comfort, the learning is really going to grow. And that even the community part, that might mean just getting people on top of the roof to move leaves. And so we can free some drains, so we can free some leakage going on. These are the things that we do have to do. And sometimes it's tough to look toward the future, but it's better to be proactive than retroactive if things were to really fall apart and break. 95 years, we put the wear and tear on the building. So we need your help.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. It's a good segue into 95 years. So a little early theme, we'll get some scripture in there, but for now, it's time to thrive in year 95. And so real quick, just going to talk about the registration process, and that will be available tomorrow for our current families. And so the Archdiocese thought it would be a great year to go to a totally new system for all schools. And so we signed up, but we just are going to do things the way we know how to do them because it works, and we'll transfer the data later. So there will be a new program that's not fax, even though we did all in on fax to try to get us all in one spot. But we're going to just do our Google form that will be very simple for y'all to fill out. We lowered the registration fee by $50. It has been $250 for a while. We actually lowered it to say thank you to our families for your commitment, for all you're doing. It's the least we could do, but we do have to generate our revenue. If you wait till after March 4th, it's going to go up by $150 to $350. And new families can also register at that time. So it might not just be a financial hole, but there may not be spots in some of our cohorts if we wait beyond this priority window. And if we're waiting until summer, if the spot's still there, that fee is going to go way up because, again, we need to plan for success. So we just ask that you honor that. And obviously we'll work with you if you have some pending life circumstances, but let's all do our part. The other fees aren't really changing all that much, pretty standard. And so I don't think I need to go over this. One note on vaccines, the state of Washington is currently looking at whether or not to add a COVID-19 vaccination to be required for school attendance next school year. So stay tuned on that. We will be in touch, but that is on the docket in Olympia. So the process, attend the state of the school. Well done. You can check that off your list. Tomorrow, you'll get an email with a link to register. Again, a Google form. We apologize for the monotony. However, it is kind of the one time a year we get to see if your information has changed from an address or phone number. And so please do take the time to do that for us. One per family, not one per child. And again, there are those fees with those dates there. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. We could not do this without you. Tuition assistance is another big part of this. Fulcrum's deadline has come and gone. Families should hear back this month. Usually February you hear if you qualified for a Fulcrum scholarship. Our St. Teresa deadline is April 15th, which is tax day. And so Fulcrum needed your 2021 information or your 2020 information to decide on this year's award. St. Teresa uses last year, 2021 tax information for next year's award. So please note that that is a difference. If you go on to fax aid and it says incomplete, it's because it wants your 2021 info. So by April 15th, please get that done. If you need help with it, let Miss Nicole, Mrs. Codrington, myself know, and we can get you in once you have your taxes done. April 15th, and then we'll get the award letters out a month after that. So to close, we made it. I made it to the finish line. Parents, again, this week, all weeks are amazing, but this week, more than others, you really have stepped up. We try to be humble and put our needs out there. It feels, you know, as like a paternal figure of the community, it feels like a little bit embarrassing that we can't meet all of the needs in the building right now. But I know you know that this is not an ordinary time, but we're an extraordinary community, so we get it done. And so thank you. I'm in Miss Nicole's seat right now. I know a lot of you have sat here this week. You've been on recess duty, you've been in the lunchroom, you've been in the classrooms. But we do it because we're one. We're a family. That's our auction theme, and we're united. And so we like to say to the kids that when we use our words, we pray once, but when we sing, we pray twice. So it's not going to be one of those super awkward, everybody unmute and sing on Zoom, because we know that that never goes well. But join me, if you will, listening to today's version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. I don't know why we waited till the rainy day of the week to do this, but it's just a good visual for the joy and the beauty and love that we start every day with. So to close us in prayer, here is Lift Every Voice and Sing.
2, ready, sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise the listening sky.
Let it resound, let the Lord.
Deep voice. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Deep voice. Sing a song full of the faith that the present has brought. Facing the rising sun of our new day. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won.
We're done.
Oh, not again. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Get some good rest this evening. I'm not sure if we're ready to try breakout rooms, but I'll stop sharing my screen and find out. But remember, we can do all things.
Through
Christ who strengthens us.
Amen. Dream Teamers, go to bed. We'll see you in the morning.